Does anyone else like patch notes? Because I sure do. I love a good patch note. And we have ourselves a whopper of a patch here for the free update Heroes of Dune for Dune Spice Wars. If you like patch notes as much as I do, why don't you join me here, and we'll roll through, see what we can see in here. I'll give you a take on what I think it's going to mean. I can tell you right now, so much is up in the air. We've got massive changes across the board here, but let's jump right into it. We got House Vernius of Ix in the game. I've played a couple of matches with them. I can tell you they're super cool, super flavorful, a lot of fun. Maybe not any good, remains to be seen, but they're cool as hell. I'll give them that. Each faction has 2 hero units now. We'll talk to them as we get to them. Heroes show up at 10k hegemony in every game mode. And you pick one hero, you don't get to get the other one. Once you pick one, it locks the other one out. If your hero dies, you can just buy it back for 1,000 Solari and 30 Landsred standing, or 150 authority if you're a Fremen, because they don't have any Landsred standing. We got a big combat rework. That means we've got new stats for every single unit in the game, basically. Armor is no longer a thing that can be shredded. You can kind of temporarily reduce armor with debuffs, but you can't like blow it off for periods of time like you used to. Units also have attack speed. So it used to be, the formula was power minus armor equals damage. Well, now some units attack faster and some attack slower as well. So, the dynamic is there are some units with a high attack speed, lower damage, and their intent is to, buzzsaw through units that don't have any armor, but they'll struggle against guys that have high armor. And you've also got units that have high power but lower attack speed, and that higher power will punch through the armor, but the lower attack speed will make it sort of less DPS, less damage per second while they're doing it, right? So you can sort of see that's kind of the way they've thought about this. And so as I go through this, actually, I'm going to break stuff up into like a high, medium, low values, because they give us all the numbers here if we're looking at stuff. This guy's at 500 health, this guy's at 400 health, but I'm just going to tell you it's like a high health, a medium health, a low health, and we'll go from there. I think it'll be easier for us to parse in our brains if we do that, rather than giving you the little incremental numbers. Also, gear is wildly reworked. Everybody's got brand new gear. It used to be gear was sometimes good, sometimes forgettable. It would be like +1 power, but -1 armor, right? And who cares? That makes no difference whatsoever. Sometimes there was good stuff. Sometimes there was very meh. Sometimes situational bad stuff. But it's been all replaced. And from the looks that I've had at it, for the most part, it looks very good. Everything seems to be a buff. You've got 4 pieces of gear for each unit. Each unit could take at least 2 pieces of gear with the proper tech, and there will always be stuff you want on guys. Some things will be very niche. This thing is better against mechanical flying units, and there are some stuff that is very widely applicable. This guy has +1 armor if he's standing next to other guys. Just a lot of cool stuff there. And those are not detailed in the patch notes, so we won't get to dig into those today. We might look another day, or we might just let you figure them out on your own there. But cool stuff there, I promise. The rally point's also new. So a rally point can be placed anywhere within airfield range, and new units will appear there. The Fremen can rally point near any allied siege that hasn't been pillaged instead. So what it is, guys used to just sort of pop out of thin air next to your main base, but now they will land via a shuttle, kind of like if they had taken an airport flight, like from one airbase to another. They land via a shuttle, so you could set the rally point at another place that has an airfield, and when you train guys at your main base, they will land in that rally point at the other airfield. Like, it's super, super cool. And I think the Fremen being able to rally to allied sieges is pretty crazy, right? I mean, think about an allied siege deep in the enemy lands that you want to fight at. You get in a big fight, maybe you lose your army, you make new men, and they appear already, deep in the empire at that allied siege. It's pretty wild. There's some cool stuff that could happen there. Also, elite units that used to be, your knights, your executioners, your Sardaukar, those are now available at 5k hegemony instead of 10. Stealth rework. No units are stealthy by default. Stealth can only be gained through gear, development, operations, etc. And stealth units are no longer detected by everything. They will remain hidden until their first attack. This is a pretty big change. I will say it seems like there's maybe more stealth in the game from the few stuff I've looked at. We'll talk about that when we get to individual units, but stealth was made better and maybe a little more widely available, I think. But also at the same time, they added a new building in. I'm not sure if it's mentioned here or not. Maybe they added a new building in, called the monitoring station, which gives you a wide range to see stealth. So if you suspect some stealth guys messing with you, you could build this monitoring station and it'll tell you that the stealth stuff's coming. So that's kind of neat. It remains to be seen how effective that will be, but in general, stealth is very strong. Abandoning villages and sieges. Basically, they're just saying you used to be able to try to assassinate someone and then siege the village that had an assassination cell in it, and then you could just sit in there, sieging it forever while your assassination completed, and they couldn't do anything about it. Now, if you just sit there sieging it forever, the defender eventually is allowed to just abandon that region, so you can't just get the free assassination on them. Good change, like it. Intel rework. This is a huge one I think a lot of people are glossing over. Non-faction spying field no longer gives intel. So what that means is it used to be if you'd put a guy in, you get your agents, you put him in Arrakis, you put him in the guild for manpower, you put him in the Chom for some money. Well, all of those guys also, if you put a guy in Chom, he'd make you money and intel. If you put a guy on Arrakis, he was making you authority and intel. So everybody had this base level of intel that they were getting, which is pretty high. So you could kind of just sort of spam out your operations, whatever you wanted. You never really needed to build data centers or worry about intel too much because you had this constant flow from your agents. No longer. Intel is a relatively scarce resource unless you've got, you put some intent into getting it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more below with some building changes too. More common changes. Main bases have their armor reduced. That's sort of in line with not being able to shred armor anymore. If a main base still had 20 armor, it would be nigh invincible. 10 armor means it's still going to absorb a huge amount of damage, right? Research centers were toned down from plus 25% to plus 20%. That's negligible. Military districts. This is a big one. Military district bonus 3. So if you built 3 red districts in your main base, it now gives 20% health to all units when it used to give 2 power. 20% health is good, but 2 power was amazing. I was of the opinion previously that you take 3 red districts, just about everybody all the time, because plus 2 power is too strong to pass up. Now, I could sort of imagine passing up 20% health, and I'll tell you, part of the rework to combat was taking a lot of the plus power that used to be scaling in the old system and converting it to plus health, which makes the instances of plus power or plus damage a lot stronger wherever you could find them. And the plus health, in theory, will make fights a little longer. Although the little bit that I've played, I think the time to kill stuff is pretty equivalent to what it used to be, maybe even a little faster in some cases. District 1 bonuses. If you only had 1 bonus of a district in a 1 slot on your main base, it used to give you 20% faster research of that color. Now it's just 15. No big deal. Hardly noticeable. Buildings changes. This was pretty big. Basically, they made the buildings around a village. The stuff you would build in the village. If someone attacks you and they want to destroy those buildings, just sort of spitefully, maybe they're not going to be able to take this land from you. They want to walk in, pillage it, and destroy your buildings. Well, all buildings are now twice as strong as they used to be, as with max health, and it takes significantly longer to destroy someone's buildings around a region, which is kind of a nice change because it sucked when people did it to you before, and it makes sense. It's hard to burn down a building. Data center now only works when adjacent to an enemy region. So this is a big change. We talked about, intel's a lot harder to get. Data center is how you get intel. Well, now you can't just build them anywhere. You've got to build data centers adjacent to enemy regions, just like the listening posts that generate influence. So this is a cool change. I like this. Again, it makes data centers a lot more valuable. It makes that special region that used to give you bonus data a lot more valuable. People are going to need to be a lot more thoughtful about which operations they use and when and where they use them. And if you've got the right combo of counselors or land or bonuses that give you a lot of extra intel, you're going to feel being able to use a lot more operations than other people will be able to. Monitoring station is the new building to detect stealth units at a long range, and it also detects operations in neighboring regions. It was always a thing that, if you use an operation, the enemy might get a little warning of which operation you used. That's no big deal. It's pretty negligible. Barracks give units 10% health instead of 10% power. What is a barracks? 10% health instead of 10% power. I don't know, I'm blanking. I know military bases. So military bases used to give 20% power and now give minus 10% damage received. Or minus 20% damage received instead of power. That makes sense. I know what that is. What is a barracks? I don't know. I'm racking my brain. I can't think of it right now. Someone shout out. Tell me what a barracks is. Military factory was that the mega structure that you would build. It now increases damage inflicted by military units by 20%. Instead of, previously it was like plus 10% power or 15% power or something like that. So pretty similar, but it's a damage boost. I think it's probably better because damage boosts are so rare now. Research station, the other major building that would bump up the amount you got from research hubs, was basically cut in half, 100% down to 50, but the increased upkeep was 50 down to 25. No big deal. Lay of the land for everybody. This was the development that you would research that gave you a quarter of a knowledge per each village. Well, this has been doubled in strength up to half a knowledge per village. This is a pretty big deal. This counts for an awful lot of knowledge, the more land that you've got. This is pretty cool. Border defenses give you less armor, no big deal. Energy efficiency, instead of 50% less fuel cells, it's 30%. No big deal. Probe setups now detect stealth units in the region. That's cool. It's another way to catch out stealth stuff. If you use the operation to scan a region with a probe, you can now shows all the stealth units that are sneaking around there. Also, defense breaches, the operation you would use to attack someone's main base to make it vulnerable, was juiced up from 30% to 50% damage received by the main base, and also -3 armor to the main base. I think that's a buff across the board, no matter how you look at it. It might be a little easier to kill bases. Common unit changes. Landsraad guards got nerfed. Judges got nerfed. Let's suffice to say they will function just the same as they used to. They'll be good defenders inside territory you own. However, the big news is they moved from 2 command points to 4 command points, which is a big nerf, right? One of the benefits is you used to be able to fit a ton of guards and judges at 2 command points and to make a really, really big army if you're defending, against an endgame push into your lands, but you've got that council position that lets you make judges. You can make a ton of judges and really burn people down, but they're fine units, but 4 command points makes them a lot less enticing than they used to be. And I think the cost is up slightly on them too, from 30 influence to 40 influence. Yeah. Nerfs for them, I would say. Nerfs for mercenaries as well. This is much needed. Mercenaries were pretty oppressive. You used to be able to build up a big bank, get to your 10% chome, and then if someone's trying to mess with you, if you lose your army, you build, because mercenaries only had a build time of 1 day, you crank out 50 mercenaries, right, and just flood the enemy with manpower. And it was really not fun to fight into. It was sort of fun to use, but it felt cheesy for sure. So what they've done is they've made them weaker. They've taken away a quarter of their health. This slight increase in power, that's nothing. They gave them permanent stealth, which is weird. And they also gave them half cost refund if you disband them. That's kind of interesting too. So you could pop them out and then you disband them when you're done with them. I like that idea. They only last for 20 days, and they're now 800 Solari instead of 500, and they're now 3 command points instead of 2 command points. So you can fit 50% less of them in, and they cost, roughly 50% more. I like that. I think those are good changes. I think the stealth is real weird, but okay, whatever. Other common changes. Other treaties can be proposed at the same time as a non-aggression pact, so you don't got to make multiple deals. You can put all your deals in one trade agreement. The Observatory Mountain now allows listening posts and data centers to be built even if no enemy factions are present in neighboring villages, and then increases the production there. Super cool. We like that. Ix Scientist Quest, and this is the Labthopter that you'd get to fly around and give you some permanent extra knowledge. You only get it now if you are truce. You only are able to get this quest if you are in truce with House Vernius or if they're not in the game. That's weird, but okay. Harvesters in greed mode produce a little more spice when there's a worm nearby. Nobody seriously uses greed mode, but okay, maybe it's a little bit better now. It is now possible to put a harvester in safe mode as soon as you assign an ornithopter to it, instead of waiting for the ornithopter to fly all the way there first. Great, we love that. Good quality of life. UI changes for sure. We won't harp on those. Bug fixes. Harvesters don't lose safe mode. That's great. We love that. Bug fixes. Research agreements give the right amount of research speed. I think I've talked about that before. Research agreements always felt like they were giving you a little more than they ought to. And various other bug fixes. But let's get into some houses, right? Let's talk House Atreides, one of my favorites. Base faction changes. Diplomatic base bonuses have been removed. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I think it's probably pretty minor stuff that no one cared too much about. Here's stuff to care about, though. The Atreides villages now cost 10% more authority to annex and 10% longer to liberate. That means people taking, if you're Atreides, if someone taking your villages has to pay more authority and take extra time to annex or liberate them. That's super cool. I like that. Your villages are reluctant to leave the fold of the Atreides. Also, how about this? All Solari upkeep are reduced by 10%. What a strange buff. I don't think there's anything else quite like that in the game, but it's just, hey, these guys, pay less money for everything. All right, we'll take it. As an Atreides fan, that makes me smile. Makes me see Solari. Counselor changes. Duncan, Idaho, and Gurney Halleck are removed from the counselors. They're your new heroes. Thurfer Howitt. Haste cost was reduced for buildings. That's negligible. That's not his strength. Thurfer was always good because he gives you an extra trait on your agents. That's still there. Who cares about him hasting building production? Lady Jessica got some buffs, strangely enough. She was already one of the stronger counselors. Can spend influence to force truce on another faction. Now, I haven't checked if this means only truce. So you used to be able to spend influence to force them to take anything. Like you could force them to take a trade deal, or you could force them to take a research agreement. That is no longer the case. I think it's just truces she could force. Also, she makes it so Atreides treaties have no authority upkeep on either side. It used to be that Atreides treaties had no upkeep for the other guy, but the Atreides still paid an authority upkeep to maintain their treaties. Jessica now negates that. Jessica also makes it so that if a faction betrays a truce with Atreides, they lose 50 more Landsrad standing by doing so. It's already pretty punishing. It's like, I think it's 200 maybe for betraying a truce. So you can only kind of do it if you're deep in the Landsrad standing already. I don't know that that's means much, but it's kind of neat. New counselor, replacing the guys that became heroes. Dr. Wellington Ewa. Dr. Ewa produces 2 knowledge base. That's very good. 2 knowledge, from day one is going to add up to a lot. That'll be a nice little supercharge to your development speed. Non-mechanical units have 10% max health. That's that's the new go-to military buff, is extra health, and that's really the Atreides thing, is extra health. So that's good. We like it. 10%'s pretty small, but it's better than nothing. Non-mechanical units regenerate 30% faster. Okay, we don't care. And we also have the young Paul Atreides as a new counselor. Paul's taken the place of Duncan here because he produces 2 authority per allied siege. When he allies a siege, it reveals another siege. That's cool. That was not a thing before. So you find one siege, you ally with it, and boom, the next one pops up. So you've got a clear line of what you're supposed to be looking for. And also, when the first siege is revealed, its relation level is set at 30. 30 is a little low, but I guess it's better than nothing. I think young Paul Atreides is pretty good. I like him because I like authority, and as we look through these patch notes, we're going to find that things that gave us more authority are largely gone from a couple other factions. I think young Paul Atreides might be maybe the premier expansion guy these days. As long as you're finding your sieges, right? If you don't find your sieges, you're out of luck. You brought a counselor that doesn't do anything. But you find 2 sieges, you're making +4 authority, you're feeling great. 3 sieges, you're over the moon. Things are going wonderful. I like young Paul Atreides a lot. I think he's gonna be my guy. Lady Jessica, it's hard to argue against. I think Thurfer Howitt's plenty good. I think Dr. Yu is plenty good. I think all of these people are pretty viable. I think you could make a decent case for them. The council chamber building, I believe this is the main base building. 50% of votes and influence spent on a resolution that fails to pass are reimbursed as influence, and all standing losses are reduced by 50%. That's cool. I don't know how good it is, but it's neat. I'd have to play around with it to see how valuable that actually is, right? In theory, you know, you try to get a big vote, you fail, you'll get enough refunded that you could try a big vote for the next council, right? I don't know. It's got some potential. Development changes. Here's a big one. Proud Liberator. This is your tier 4 tech in the red tree that replaces like the siege incentives for everybody else. Everybody else who wants to burn down bases faster. No, the Atreides are the Proud Liberators. They get 2% max health per 25 Landsrad standing. That's pretty huge. You figure the Landsrad cap's 500, and the Atreides already climb up the Landsrad pretty quickly. 500, so you're getting 8% per 100, 5 times 8. You got 40% more health if you're at max Landsrad for all of your non-mechanical units. That's wild. 40%. That's like having 2 sets of 3 red districts. It's a huge power buff for the Atreides army, and I think one thing that will make their endgame army pretty solid to work with. It also makes it so that units liberating or annexing a village with less standing heal. Okay, we don't care. Veteran militia. This was the thing that made Atreides really good with inside their borders. Used to be a flat 20% damage reduction. Now it's a flat 15% damage reduction. That's fine. I can understand the nerf there. It's still good. It still buffs up militia health, still buffs up militia power as well. We're still going to get it. It's great. Sustainable spying. Here's a cool one. Agents assigned Chom Landsrad Spatian Guild produce 100% more resources. Also, agent traits present only once on an information field apply their effects twice. So I think this means you've got agent traits, stuff like this guy makes, 0.5% more Solari per information level. I think that means if you put this guy on the Chom, he now makes twice as much Solari per information level. I could see this working really nicely with our boy Thurfer, who gives extra traits to our agents. Get some good traits, stick them out there. Their effects get doubled as well. That sounds really cool. I like that. I'm going to try that out for sure. Small council has been removed. I don't even remember what that was. New development. Active surveillance replaces nefarious contact. Plus influence and intel per agent on counterintelligence. That's pretty cool. And +1 agent slot in counterintelligence. Political entente. When an other faction betrays House of Atreides, get 5 free Landsrad guards and unlocks the council chamber. This is awesome. You pair this up. Also, it works beautifully with Lady Jessica, right? Lady Jessica forces your enemies into truces. And one of the problems with Lady Jessica, the reason I didn't like her before, is if the enemy really wants to kill you, they just betray the truce and then keep killing you, right? It's just paper. Unless you're Ecaz and you can't betray truces, that's a whole other thing. Sucks to be them. But if the Fremen are murdering you, they just break the truce and keep murdering you. But now, if you've got political entente, if someone betrays your truce, 5 free Landsrad guards is a not insignificant force, right? They're already attacking you to betray you, so this is likely 5 more tough defenders you have in your own land. I like that. That's super cool. I wonder if it stacks. If 1 guy betrays you, do you get 5? If 2 guys betray you, do you suddenly have 10 Landsrad guards? That would be awesome, right? Because you've already got your 65, CP army to defend yourself. 5 guards now at 4 CP each is an extra 20, right? Every time someone betrays you, you get 20 free CP of extra guys to defend you. I don't know. I see potential there. I see potential. All right, let's talk units. And we're going to use the Atreides as sort of a baseline for a lot of our stuff here. We're going to say for health, 400 is about medium health. Above 400 we'll call high. Below 400 we'll call low. We're going to say 15 power is about medium power. More than 15 high, less than 15 low. Attack speed's going to be our medium attack speed, and medium armor is probably going to be like 4 or 5-ish. So taking that into account, troopers move up to 500 health. That's high. The troopers have a high health. They drop down a little bit to, little sub-medium power. They have an average attack speed and maybe above average armor. 6 armor is a good chunk of armor, actually. Their new trait for troopers is +2 power under the effects of at least one allied unit bonus. So they get +2 power if another unit is given them a bonus of some type. Easy peasy, we add a warden to our army. They're getting, the warden bonus, and then a free +2 power. +2 power is really good, we like that. Troopers would be amazing, except they also got bumped from 4 to 5 command points. 5 is a lot of command points. That's an elite level of command, right? So I feel like if they had stayed at 4, this is an incredible unit. We love them. We make 1,000,000 troopers. At 5, it's a little harder to swallow, but still troopers are good. I think they punch above average in just about all their stats here. 10 Solari is a pretty reasonable upkeep for Relegate stats. And they got a bunch of gear that is not explained here. Rangers are bumped up to a mid-range of health, above average power here. That's cool, we like that. Average attack speed. Their armor dropped down to quite low. That's fine, they're a ranged unit, we don't really care what their armor is. But their trait, which used to be something like, does more damage the more guys that are shooting this target, right? Now it's a very generic, the target deals 10% less damage, and I believe that stacks only one time. It doesn't stack up with multiple guys. This is a little sad. They also jump from 3 to 4 command points. Above average stats across the board, but the command point jump hurts. The loss of their cool trait hurts. They're okay. They used to be probably the best unit on Atreides, and now they're a fine, generic ranged unit, I think. But not to be too sad, our heavy weapons squads got quite a glow up here. These guys have dropped from 5 down to 4 command points, from 12 upkeep down to 8. Much more reasonable upkeep, much more reasonable command points. And their power jumped from a 7 to a 23. That's a very high power, so they do a lot of damage, but their attack speed also is not the 5 that we're calling the medium. It's a 3.3, which is what we're calling a low attack speed here. And their armor also fell off, so these guys are a dedicated ranged DPS. And their trait is, they used to blow up armor, but that's not a thing anymore. Now they may just make it that the target they're attacking has 2 less armor, and that is non-stacking as well, I believe. Just a good high damage unit at 4 command points. They're pretty comparable with Rangers. I wonder what the actual DPS looks like as 23 power with 3.3 versus 18 power at 5 attack speed. I don't know, it's pretty comparable, but I think more power is gooder in my mind. Armor got a lot better. Let's talk about that real quick. Armor got a big buff because when they added in the attack speed as part of this equation, right? It used to be 1 armor kind of negated 1 power. So people just stacked power and who cares? Now 1 armor still negates 1 power, but it does a little extra work if guys are higher attack speed, right? And there's a bunch of guys that are. We'll talk about that. But armor got a buff across the board generally. So more armor is good. Think of it that way. That more armor is good, better than it used to be. Support drones got a big nerf to their survivability. They moved from 600 health to 300, so I would say low health, kind of medium armor when before they were quite high armor. They got a slight boost to power, but that's not really what matters. And they still save guys from dying. Pretty sad across the board. I do know off the top of my head, though, that they did get a really cool, one of these gears, I think optimized bed arrangements maybe, allows them to save a 3rd guy from death when before they could just save 2 guys. That's pretty cool. I think maybe we keep a support drone around or 2. That's still nice. There are only 3 command points. That's pretty easy to stomach. Wardens dropped a little bit in health. They're still at what I'd call pretty high health at 500, slightly above average power, average attack speed. They've got that great trait, +2 armor to all nearby allies. That's suddenly a lot better in the world of attack speed. +2 armor is super good on all of your other guys. Still 5 command points, pretty much unchanged as what they used to be. These guys, you don't make 10 of them. You sprinkle in 2 or 3 into your army, and then you count on your other units to carry the load. Hawks got a bunch more damage, much more power. They lost a lot of health. They're quite low health, pretty medium low power. They're quite a fast attack speed at 10, and they take less damage from ground units. I don't know what niche these guys are supposed to fit in. They're just kind of a generic air unit, I guess. I guess they're a fast attacking, low power, so they're meant to shred low armor stuff. It's a little weird. I don't know where they're going. Kraken lost a lot of health and armor. So this is across the board. All of your major ships dropped about half of their health and half of their armor. I think it's a lot easier to shoot down the great big ships than it used to be. And they still do the same thing. They carry units, and when they're carrying units, they have more armor. Sure, we'll take it because it doesn't take up CP, but otherwise we're not in love with the Kraken. Let's talk heroes. We got Duncan Idaho, 1,000 health, 20 power. That's a lot of health. Pretty good. High power, average attack speed, above average armor, and his trait is extra power and armor for each allied unit bonus applied to him, and nearby allies deal 10% damage, and he does 10% more damage and takes 10% last during his last stand per previous death. So each time he dies, his last stand ability gets better. That's funny. And then his last stand ability is you lose control of him, but he gains a bunch of attack speed and damage mitigation and run speed, and he just sort of goes berserk and fights. Kind of cool, just sort of a fighty guy. His stats aren't crazy, but I think he's okay. Gurney Halleck. I was always a Gurney enjoyer when he was just a counselor, and I think I'm a Gurney enjoyer as a hero. He's got 1,000 health. That's quite high. 18 power is pretty decent for a unit. It's not crazy hero power, but it's enough. Average attack speed, 8 armor is quite high in the armor. And then his traits, similar to the old one, he gives an extra armor per experience level after the first to nearby units. Although now nearby units gain 50% more experience. That's cool. So your guys get better with experience, but they also get experience faster. Love it. Also, whatever target he's fighting does 50% less damage. So you could put him on, the enemy's biggest, baddest guy, and they lose a lot of their power. And his skill is Forced March. I don't know what this is good for, but it's kind of neat. Him and all the guys around him move 30% faster and have more armor, but can't fight. And then you could turn it off at any time. So you pop Forced March, and your whole army runs real fast. I'm trying to think of when I want that to happen. I don't know. I'm sure it will be useful at some point in time. There's lots of running in the game, but not super impactful. But still, 50% extra XP, super cool. Extra armor, which we now know is better than it used to be, per experience level, also super cool. We like them. I think both of those are plenty viable. Let's move on to House Harkonnen. This might be a long video. House Harkonnen, base faction changes. 5k hegemony bonuses changed. It used to be a 5% chance to get a brainwashed agent every time you killed something. Now you get a brainwashed agent every time you kill 20 non-mechanical things no matter what. Basically the same, just making it a little more reliable, I think. Counselor changes. Nefud and Raban have been removed. They're now heroes. Fade, his corruption used to be 50, now it's only 20 intel to use. That's great. I think at 20 intel you put corruption on everything you possibly can. And it doesn't increase with the number of the Lands Red Council. I think over time it used to increase before. New counselors, Kronvatia, villages under oppression build 200% faster, and you get 50 Solari killing rebels. 50 Solari killing rebels is great. We like that. New counselor Uman Kudu. All ally units in the region with active Harkonnen operations gain in armor and minus 30% recruitment time. That's pretty good. I think we like that too. Development changes. Adrenaline addiction now increases attack speed per death instead of power. That's interesting. I think attack speed is still good to have increased, so that's probably still just as good as it used to be. Combat drugs. Ally units lose 10% health per day. Ally units get 10% health per day. Attacks deal 30% damage. I assume they mean ally unit attacks deal 30% damage. Not everybody, so that would be real dumb. That's pretty close to what it used to be. I think maybe they're just changing power to damage here. Toxic Vapors, which was always good, got a buff from 20% to 30% health lost per day from all units. It was already great at 20%, and now at 30% health per day, it's going to be really oppressive. Unit changes. Troopers dropped down in power a little bit. They get attack speed based on their missing health. They're a little bit more upkeep. Pretty average across the board. Average armor, average health. Gunners dropped a bit of health, gained some power, 16 power, and lost some attack speed, lost all of their armor. So they're a medium high power, low attack speed. But their trait is 200% power based on missing health, which sounds really cool, but you don't want your ranged DPS to be missing health necessarily. A little counterintuitive, perhaps. They dropped from 5 down to 3 command points, which is a massive change. 12 upkeep down to 6 upkeep. That's a massive change. So you could just have a ton of gunners now, and if people are, I guess if they're getting AoE'd, or if they're nearly dying but not quite dying, they do massive more damage. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Cerberus. I don't know what Cerberus are supposed to do now. They got slightly more health. 0 armor. They're still pretty low health at 300. 11 power, 10 attack speed. So that's high attack speed, low power. These guys are meant to sort of dice up unarmored enemies. And they used to split into 2 guys when you killed them, which was cool because you would do these builds with them where you're counting on lots of guys dying to juice up other guys, like your executioners. But now it just says non-mechanical targets lose health when moving. So they kind of have like a little rend, a little bleed effect there. If you hit something and then it tries to run away, it loses health. I don't know how effective that will be. It would depend on, I guess, what the values for that are. But losing the split trait hurts a lot, I think. Combat probes, renamed, used to be stealth probes, now combat probes. Basically no health, very low power, medium attack speed, no armor. And now enemy nearby units lose 2 armor. That's good. That's really good. But if anyone even looks at you, you die. And these guys are down to 1 command point. I think what will make or break these guys is how good their gear is. I can see the mounted explosive. It used to be the explosives you could put on probes had a sort of a niche application. That, if they died, they would blow up and do damage all around them. That was kind of a fun way to use them before. We'll wait and see what that could be. Right now, they look pretty underwhelming. They're just so fragile. Executioners. Lost a little bit of health, but still high at 500. Lost a little bit of power, a little bit of armor. They still have their great trait, though. When in combat, any nearby death gives 1 power. I'm not entirely sure what that caps out at. I wish they would tell us. It used to be maybe 10, or maybe it didn't cap. I don't know. Still the same upkeep and command points. These are great guys. Executioners are wonderful, the mainstay of every Harkonnen army. Harpies lose some health. These are your flying units. Lose some health, lose some power, but massive power boost against units with less than 30% health. That's weird. I guess you sort of fly them in to pick off weak stuff to help focus fire. I don't know that they'd be good at that. Their health is so low, they'll get shot down pretty quickly, but it might be fun. We'll see how they go. See how it works. Overlord, their big ship, lost half its health and a chunk of its armor, and now it stocks up on its stings, those little fighter ships it would release. When it enters combat, it shoots all those guys out at once, and they never come back, but it starts rebuilding new ones inside of it immediately, so it could stock up new ones. That's good, because this was pretty bad all before. Maybe they'll be better. New unit skill, Decimation Protocol. Stings rush their target and explode. Oh, so you have an active ability on them now that sends your guys to sort of kamikaze into their targets. Interesting. I don't know how effective that will be. We'll wait and see. There's some stats on stings. They have 11 power with medium attack. Not too exciting. But they make the enemy have minus 50% health per day. Is that true? Maybe they have 50% health per day? I don't know. Weird. Raban and Nafud are new heroes. Raban's got high health, kind of low power, average attack speed, average armor. A new hero trait. +1 militia in every village. Uncontrolled ally units get a damage buff, an armor buff, and move faster. And Raban gets more power and armor per uncontrolled unit. Nearby... Oh, and his skill makes his nearby units become uncontrollable. Gladiator drugs. Okay, so you pop his drug skill, you lose control of your army, they all go into a rage, but get big buffs to their damage and armor and run speed. And when they go into a rage, they buff up Raban too. That's kind of cool. I'd be interested to see how that goes. Sounds like fun. Sounds very flavorful. Drug up the troops and send them in. The food. 800 health. Above average, but a little lower than some heroes. 20 attack power, average speed, average armor. His trait is every military unit at base level reimburse 50% of their cost on death, but can't heal. Okay, this was sort of the old stuff he had. Ally units in the same region give attack speed per... Ally units in the same region as him gain attack speed per operation in the region. That's nice. You pop off, 3 operations in a region, you got 15% attack speed for your whole army there. Cool. He gains power and armor per unit death nearby. Okay, so he's like an executioner. That's a very strong trait then, because there tends to be a lot of deaths in combat. And new skill, survival of the fittest. Kill an ally unit with less health and then heal him from their remaining health. So you can sacrifice a guy to heal him, and then it gives him 100% more power for 1 attack. Okay, I can see that being kind of situationally fun or useful. I'm not wowed, but those are neat. Let's keep going. Smugglers. Counselors change. Drisk and Banerjee are now your heroes. Lingar, water network extension. This was getting water from people. It now costs you more money. Selling water to people now gives you less money. This makes sense. Slight nerfs to them. This was sort of definitely the common meta for smugglers, was just to sell everyone tons of water and become filthy rich. New counselors, Lashon Hara. Lashon, maybe. Gain information on other factions by trading intel to them. I don't know what that means. Half an influence production per information level in any field. That's very good. Influence production, that gives them some work in the political game, right? Smugglers could always be sort of surprisingly political. And faction information levels reduce 50% slower. Who cares? And Stakhanov. Smuggler villages without any smuggler neighbors produce 20% resources, plus 20% resources, and take 100% longer to besiege. Okay, that's cool. So the smugglers are able to take things sort of anywhere in the map, right? Because they don't get those distance penalties when they're annexing things. And if you take things far away and it doesn't have any neighbors, it makes 20% more resources and it's harder to besiege. That's super cool. I like that a lot. And refunds 50% of authority capture cost if a village is lost in any way. So when people take your villages, you get authority back for it. That's super cool. I like that. Building changes. The hidden explosives in a main base are now just 3 armor instead of losing all armor. The beacon network, a main base extension, used to give units in that territory +3 armor. Now it's only +2 armor. Pretty much the same thing. And weapons dealer of +5 power to the military unit per level of the host's main base highest level military district. I think that's mostly unchanged. It's about what it used to be. Maybe less. It might have been 10%. Now it's 5%. Pretty similar. Guerrilla tactics. This was changed to deal 20% damage at night. I think they toned this down, and maybe this is now toning it back up. This is just the classic smuggler tech of them being better fighters at night. That's cool. We like this being effective. Security details. Receive, instead of 3, now 4 mercenaries after any resolution marked by a bounty passes. Trash. I don't think it's any good. I think bounties are bad in general because they pay out your neighbors too much. And getting 4 mercenaries because of bounty passes is no big deal. Scavengers. 400 health, average, 15 power, average, attack speed, average. 2 armor is pretty light for a frontliner boy, but +3 armor once at least 1 enemy has died nearby. Okay, so that would push them up to 5 armor once something dies. Pretty sort of average ho-hum traits. And their upkeep went up slightly, so they're not the super cheap boys they used to be. They're now 8 Solari instead of 6. Not impressed by scavengers, but that's not why you play smugglers. Wreckers got a slight boost in power, but they're still pretty low power. They're sort of a low power AoE damage guys, pretty fragile at 300 health, 0 armor, and they snare the guys they hit. Damage units move 20% slower. They did move from 4 command points down to 3. I think that's nice. I think it's always worthwhile to have a couple in the army just to do AoE, to snare stuff, to make sure keep guys off of your snipers. I like them. 3 command points, they seem like a deal for me. Snipers, slight, like 250 health, which is pretty low still. 21 power, which is real high. Attack speed is going to be low. Range long, no armor. So these are your glass cannons, right? And their trait is first attack has 100% more power. Boom. Oh, look at this. And their upkeep is cut in half from 12 down to 6 Solari, and command points from 4 down to 3 command points. Wow, that's a big change, the command points in the Solari. I mean, it seems to me like this is a buff across the board for snipers. You always sort of used them in big groups to sort of stutter step and blow stuff away that you were focus firing on. They've got armor penetration as a generic trait. Wow, I think snipers are going to be great. They were already great. I think they're still going to be great. Maybe more great. Scavenger drones, average health, pretty decent power on the scavenger drones, average attack speed, okay armor. Any enemy unit death nearby gives loot scavenged that is sold at owned villages for 75 Solari. Now, does this mean when guys die, you build up like traits of loot and then you have to go back to the town to get the 75 Solari? Or do you just get the 75 Solari if you survive the battle or something? I don't know. It's not clear how that works, but it's okay. It's kind of interesting. 5 command points is a tad steep for that effect. I mean, you want your army to... Ideally, you want your army to win fights, not just make some money. But I guess as the smugglers, you're doing a lot of pillaging, so maybe you are just making money with your army. I don't know. I'm not sold on that. I'm a little meh. Free Company, 500 health, but 14 power. So their power is sort of on the low medium side. Attack speed is very high. Their armor is low, and they get plus 50% target. Or plus 50% power if the target has at most 3 armor. Okay, so these are your flankers, your backline shredders. These guys kill the low armor targets. But their power is pretty low, their armor is pretty low. They are not going to stand in a fight with any other kind of dedicated frontliner, for sure. Banshees. These used to be your stealth ground attack only, but now they can only attack flying units. Still stealthed. These are your stealthed flying attack only now. Big bonus in their power. Okay armor, a tad light on the health, and attacks from stealth reduce the speed and attack speed of the target until the enemy combat, and ignores half of the enemy's armor. Okay, so these are now your anti-air option for the smugglers, right? Ooh, 40 guild favor is pretty pricey for them, but they did buff the power a lot. So these guys are your air-to-air fighters. They're expensive, but I don't know. They got a lot of power on them, and ignoring half their enemy armor, they're going to chunk stuff down. So they used to be ground attack. Now they're air attack. Total shift and roll for them, but pretty cool. Wraiths, everyone's hated flagship. Wraiths lost half their health, just like everybody else. I think that's going to make them a lot easier to deal with. They still deal damage and reduce the speed of enemy units in the large range, and their skill increases the damage inflicted, but reduces the Wraith's speed so it moves slower. I think that might be a little different. That's interesting. Wraith still sounds really great, but I think it'll be potentially killable now, which would be nice for a change. Heroes, Drisk. 600 health, pretty low for a hero, but 40 power is bonkers high. 3.3 is low speed, range is very long. Okay, this is your sniper guy. Drisk is your sniper. Hero trait, ally ground units with no targets receive minus 30% damage. So I think this means you grab your guys, you run away from the enemy. The enemy's trying to close with your snipers. You tell your sniper to run away to put some ground in between you. While he's running away and not targeting things, he takes 30% less damage. That's pretty cool. Detects stealth in a long range. Ally units in the same region of him get stealth if an operation is active. He's got armor penetration, and his ability makes the next operation launched not get consumed. Super cool. I like Driscoll a lot. That all sounds awesome. Banerjee, 1,000 health. That's good hero health. 20 power is pretty decent. Medium attack speed, medium armor. Units can regenerate health and supply in Underworld headquarters. Ooh, wonderful. So this used to be the really strong ability of, what was it? Underworld doctor or back alley doctors, I think it was. So your guys could heal in enemy villages that you were taking or just like chilling out in because you had an Underworld headquarters there. Now it looks like it's just as long as you've got Banerjee, that works in every place in Underworld headquarters. That's super strong. Units regain their supply after a successful siege. Meh. Banerjee has extra power and armor outside of smuggler territory. Okay, cool. So this is your guy to go out and fight people. Skill is street urchins. Immediately recruit 2 scavengers. Okay, so they bundle a whole bunch of smuggler abilities into this guy, but he seems pretty cool. I like him. I like him. Bounty now has a constant cost of 500 Solari. Was it different? I didn't notice it ever being different before. Maybe it's scaled up over time. Weird. Let's talk Fremen. Fremen base change. 10k hegemony bonus allows Fremen to build a main base building in every allied siege. So I did try a Fremen game and I saw that their main base has less spots for building stuff in it, which stinks. But now you can apparently build main base buildings in allied sieges, which is cool. Okay. All the more reason to ally your sieges, which you already wanted to do. No big deal. Chani and Othame are their new heroes. Mother Romulo was changed a lot. Can use Instill Rebellion on Lands Red Resolution at the cost of 80 authority. Ugh. Instill Rebellion was always awesome, but it used to cost maybe 100 intel, which was fine because you made tons and tons of intel. She now makes intel. She makes 3 intel per harvesting team. But 80 authority stinks. Authority is a valuable resource. All the more valuable because Stilgar no longer makes it for you. I don't know that I would ever use 80 authority to instill a rebellion. That sucks. Sad times. But 3 intel production per harvester team is great. We love that. Especially with intel being more valuable now. Stilgar now used to give us, used to make things cheaper, lower upkeep around spice fields, used to give us extra authority per spice field, was critical for the fast expanding playstyle of the Fremen. But now he reveals all sieges and alliances cost 50% less authority. Those are still cool. We like those, but boy, it hurts losing the bonus to authority. I felt like that was a really defining trait of the Fremen, and it's weird that it didn't come in anywhere else. Oh well, we'll see. Let's keep going. Jameis, a new counselor, gets 50 authority on liberating an enemy village. All right, there's some authority gain. We like that. You just gotta liberate an enemy village. No big deal. Allied units deal 10% more damage outside of Fremen territory. All right, this is your aggro guy. 10% damage bonus is big. We love that. Trade 10 authority for 10 manpower in the top bar. I have no idea what that means, but I would not want to do that. 10 authority is vastly more valuable than 10 manpower, unless, it's critical that you get more manpower for a life or death situation. Shimoom, new counselor. A village producing at least 12 water reduces the Solari upkeep globally by 3%. And villages produce a water per empty and potential building slots. This is interesting. I sort of played around with this a little bit. It's hard to see where the 3% kicks in. I just sort of assume it does. I wasn't getting any like a little pop-up that I could click on that says, hey, you're getting 3% less upkeep or something. But to get to 12 water in a village, you have either a 4-wind village without anything built in it, or you have a 5-wind village with your water trap in it, which is not unreasonable. You could certainly expect to get 2, 3, 4, or 5 of those in a game, and have a decent little return on your upkeep investment, and have a crap ton of water too to play with. It's okay. I don't hate Shimoom. What do I think is the best here? I don't know. I feel like maybe Jameis. Maybe Jameis is your go-to guy, and you play real aggro. I'm so sad about the authority cost here. Stilgar's fine. Shimoom is fine. I don't know. I'm not sold on any of these anymore. I don't like it. Building changes. Main building. Here it is. Main base only has 5 building slots now. 1 size 2 district, 1 size 3 district. Instead you got to ally those sieges to get those other districts out. Fremen military district bonus gives Number 2 gives 10% attack speed to all units instead of 1 armor, like it does for every other faction. That's a strange change, but okay. The Bazaar. So this was super cool. This was the thing, it counts as one of each type for bonuses. So you would build like 2 reds, and then you would build the Bazaar as your third one to get the extra juice from it. The extra juice used to be, it would give you the 2-slot bonus, but now instead it gives you 10 Solari and 2 water per active trade with a siege, which I think is pretty good. I think, you know, we're incentivized to already trade with sieges. There's like at least 6 sieges around that you could probably trade with. This might be worth a constant-ish, you know, once you get up there and have them allied, might be worth 60 Solari and an extra bonus 12 water or so. That's fine. I don't hate that. Ceremonial Caves. The big change here is instead of 5% spice upkeep, it is 6 spice upkeep. Oh, it used to be 12 Solari and 5% spice production. Now it is just 6 flat spice upkeep. I think that's a good change. I think it was always really hard to parse out what exactly does 5% of your spice income mean, just because it's not really shown. It's not obvious in any particular spot at a glance exactly how much spice you're making at that moment in time. 6% spice, 5%, so it's like 5% of 120, something like that. I don't know. My math is fuzzy. My brain's fuzzy. So if you were making 120 spice, it's about the same as it was before. If you're making more spice, it's better than it used to be. If you're making less spice, it's worse than it used to be. But it's fine. I think it's just a nice clarity change here. Shai-Hulud Temple is now a military major building available at 10k with any counselor and makes thumpers. Love it. We need more thumpers. Development changes. Arrakis Secrets used to reveal position of all spice fields, still does that, but now deployed harvester teams regain health and supply. Oh no, still does that. Harvesting teams leave combat and become stealthed when they undeploy. Okay, so this is the big change. So it used to be people that wants to mess with the Fremen would just come, they march over and they murder your harvesting team because they know just where it's going to be, even if it was stealthed. But now, if it leaves combat, it will stealth out of combat for at least a day. So someone's coming to murder your harvesting team, boom, they stealth, and you've got a day to run them somewhere safer. That's pretty cool. Idli Alakrab. This was your worm riding tech that would make you do damage when you got off of it. It still does that, but now it stealths them for a day as well. Pretty cool. Desert Watchers. This is crazy. Ally units have stealth in Fremen territory. I think that just means in your territory, all your guys have stealth, right? Wild. That's super cool. Heir of Arrakis now unlocks Investment Office. I think maybe they just didn't have Investment Office ever before. This is the deep desert tech, and it's so difficult to surround deep deserts. Basically, you never got this, but I don't know. Maybe a boy could dream. A Fremen could dream. Spying operation changes. Awaken the People now always generates a rebellion of 6 rebels, where before it used to scale to game time. Cool. Fremen Sabotage has been removed. So this was the thing that the operation you would lay down, and it would weaken and slow enemies. This was a mainstay. You would always use this, and it's a little sad that it's gone. But in its place, we've got Hiding Tracks. Ally units in this region and neighboring regions have stealth. And enemy units move slower. This is crazy. This is stealthing your whole army in this region and neighboring regions. So Fremen are the stealth guys now. They'll just be invisible all the time. Whether they're attacking or defending or doing anything, they're invisible. It's crazy. Harvesters had a little bit of change. They got slightly more expensive and slightly less manpower. That's interesting. It might reduce your ability to spam them early in the game, because Solari is often a bit of a bottleneck in the early short term. Warriors, medium health, medium power, medium armor, medium across the board, but they got the +1 armor per unit targeting them. So these are sort of your tanky boys. The more you try to focus them down, the harder they get to kill. Otherwise, pretty bog standard. Skirmishers. Skirmishers are relatively low power, but AoE damage, and their trait is extra damage per unit in the area of effect. I think this is really strong. Also, they drop down to 3 command points and only 6 upkeep. I think this is really strong. I think AoE always was strong, and I think it's going to be very strong this patch. 15% damage. You could easily hit 4 or more guys. Easily be doing plus 60% damage with this AoE stuff. 3 command points. You could bring a ton of these guys. I think skirmishers are going to be very strong. Infiltrators were always weird. Now they're still weird. Relatively low health, no armor, low-ish power but super high attack speed, and minus damage received from ranged attacks. So these guys are meant to, run into the back line and blender up the low armor units. I don't know that they'll be good at that with 300 health, but maybe. Seems like a lot of work. When maybe warriors could just do it, or Fedakins. They also got a little more expensive to upkeep, which is strange, but we'll have to try them out. The Kulan Caravan. This was your mobile turret, right? A little more health, a little less armor. That's kind of weird. Deployment time of 2 seconds. Their upkeep went down. Good. 4 command points I feel is still too high for them, but okay. If they're undeployed, okay, they've got 18 power. That's a decent little pistol damage they've got. They're just little shooting, plinking away at people. But if they're deployed, they have 25 power and a slow attack speed, and they can attack flying units. 25 is not amazing with slow attack speed, but I guess it's good. Hopefully they got some cool gear. This is your anti-air, but it was never very good before. It seems marginally better now, but I don't know. We'll wait and see. Okay, here's a big change, maybe the big change. Fedakin. They lost about half their health, sort of on the low end of medium health. They've got a lot of power, a lot of high power, low attack speed, pretty good armor, and their trait is damages all units in front of it and ignores half of the enemy army. And they moved from 6 down to 5 command points. These guys are going to be absolute just lawnmowers that are going to just run over the enemy army. It's the nature of the game that you end up blobbed up because you're trying to hide on the rocks. You're trying not to get in the sand and get eaten by the sandworms. And if you are blobbed up, Fedakin at 21 base power are going to AoE mow through your army. This may have broken the game. We'll see. Also, remember that these will be stealthed at all times, so you won't even know they're there until they're literally on top of you, lawn mowing down your poor army. Oh boy, I think these guys are up for a change. This seems wildly powerful. AoE on Fedakin. Okay, we'll see. Time will tell. We don't want to overreact. We want to be open-minded about things, but boy, that looks good. Spires got 80 health. If you cough on them, they'll die. But 20 power is good damage. 5 armor is good armor, but 80 health is not a lot to work with. Minus 70% damage from missile batteries and main bases. Ignores half the enemy's armor. Can only attack flying units. That's real weird. I guess it's an anti-flying unit ship with very low health. I feel like they would just lose fights against other ships if the other ships can shoot back, but okay, we'll see. Altars, lost half their health and all of their enhancements have been changed. I think these will probably still be good. Altars were always amazing. Their enhancements used to be amazing, and if it's anything like the changes they did to gear, there'll probably still be all kinds of cool stuff. I am certain an altar will still be plenty cool. Heroes, Chani, 600 health, 18 power, so about kind of low for a hero health, kind of above average power. 10 attack speed is the super fast attack speed, so she is high damage for sure. 4 armor is low end of medium armor. Hero traits: Fremen stealth units that aren't detected move 30% faster and don't attract sandworms. Wild. She also has stealth, and enemy units that die nearby give intel. Okay, so this is your stealth hero. She makes your army sprint like crazy when they are stealthed, which is all the time now for the Fremen, apparently. And also ambush. Nearby Fremen stealth units that are not detected get 100% power on their first attack. All right. Okay, we needed more stealth lawnmower skills here, right? Oh man, I think the Fremen might be broken, guys. I'm getting worried. Othame, only 600 health, which is sort of the low end for heroes. 36 power is wildly high. Attack speed a little slow, armor a little low. new hero trait. Allied ground units that have no duplicate nearby deal 50% damage. So if you made an army of 1 Fadakan, 1 warrior, 1 skirmisher, they would do 50% more damage. This is weird, kind of weird and gimmicky. However, nearby enemy units deal -3% damage per nearby enemy unit. That sounds wildly broken to me. You know, the average army is 15 guys. If you run this into the enemy's 15 guys, do all of them do 45% less damage now? That's pretty wild. If that works that way. Units damaged by Oatham move slower. Okay, fine. He's got a little snare. And also he can coordinative strike. Nearby ally units deal 20% more damage and receive 20% less damage. Can only be used with at most 8 affected units nearby. So this is your small skirmish guy. If you want to split up your army and send 4 guys over here and 8 guys over there and maybe 4 guys over here. I don't know that that's a great way to play it, but I don't know, maybe there's a whole new world out there, and then they're all stealthed, and if they're Fadakan, they're gonna kill whatever they find. All right, we gotta keep going. Corrino, base faction changes. 10k hegemony bonus has been completely changed. Now destroying the main base of a faction in conflict with Corrino for more than 50 days. So if you've been at war with someone for like 2 months, it allows you to deploy a 3rd main base. That's a pretty silly gimmick. I don't know that Corrino ever killed anyone before, but it's nice to see a little reason to do so. Killing a unit on the territory of a faction in truce gains 15 influence. That's super good. That says help your buddies, defend your truced friends, and you'll get paid out in influence for it. That's neat. Counselor changes. When Sisia and Arasham are now your heroes. Fenring finds stuff faster, still does what he used to do, but now when he finds stuff, he makes your next agent recruit reduced by 1 day. Okay. Princess Urgulan. Okay, she got the Wen Sisia stuff, but not quite as good. In every village can build 1 instance of a single building of your choosing. That's still wildly powerful, right? It's going to be really good. Maybe better because it's not doubling the upkeep of stuff like it used to, which was always kind of a pain to work around. It still gets you more or less what you want. I think that's maybe even a buff. I don't know. That's pretty good. Also, let's not forget +2 crew slots in harvesters, which I believe stacks with all of your other econ techs. You could have 6 crew in your Corrino harvesters. Cool. Corrino needed buffs. They were so sad on the top of the heap there. Supreme Bashar Zumgaran. Military units have +15% power per faction in truce. Okay, never truce a Corrino. You shouldn't have done it before, and you shouldn't do it now. Proposing an Imperial mandate has no cost if none is active. Okay, cool. That's wildly super strong. If you're able to ally with 2 people, you just go and you murder whoever the 4th person is and deploy a 3rd base. That sounds cool. I kind of want to do that now. Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam. I don't know. Every vote and influence placed on a resolution affected by an Imperial edict counts double, and support for charters counts double. That's pretty lousy. Imperial edicts are the things that change a resolution from the elected faction to all factions, or all factions to the elected faction. So it gives you a little more political power, but I don't think it's particularly strong. I think all of that other stuff sounded a lot better to me. The Emperor's Monument, which used to be too strong, is slightly toned down and probably still pretty too strong. It doubles district bonuses in your main base. I think maybe it's nerfed because you can no longer get the 3 red district for 2 power and make it 4 power. God, that was broken. But now you're taking 20% extra HP and making it 40% extra HP, which is still really good. I don't know, guys. Imperial Protocols. Always gave you 10 command points. Now gives you 20% less damage received by units in a region where Corrino has numerical superiority. I think this was similar to something we had before, but I think it's a little stronger now. Corrino was not my house of choice, so I'm not as knowledgeable about what they used to be. Spying operation changes. Consolidation now is +2 armor to allied mechanical units and structures. I think before it was just all units and structures. Orbital strikes slightly nerfed so that the bombs will do sort of AoE damage even to allied units. So you can't just orbital strike someone and run in your army to kill them, because the orbital strikes will AoE you down too, which makes plenty good sense. Unit changes. Conscript Swordsman, kind of lowish health, down to 300. The low side of average power, the low side of average armor, but +1 armor per allied swordsman nearby. Pretty weak, but you know, they're conscripts. They're cheap, 6 Solari, 3 command points. Riflemen, I think, are a lot more interesting. They are also pretty weak, pretty squishy, but +1 power per allied conscript rifleman nearby. Still 3 command points. I think these make a lot of sense to you know, load up on a ton of these guys at 3 command points that all buff each other's power. I think that's a pretty strong ranged formation there. Incinerators. Slightly lower power, but super fast attack speed. These are your flamethrower bros. They lost a lot of their armor as well, and their trait is damage units accrue burned traits over time, increasing damage received until the end of combat. Sounds interesting. I haven't tried these out yet, but they sound pretty good. And from anecdotes I've heard of other people playing, they say that incinerators do indeed slap. So maybe this is good for them. Super fast attack speed at an AoE flamethrower. I mean, that's pretty cool. Artillery drones. Oh, artillery drones. They got a ton of power, 40 power per shot. They're like super slow, slower than even what I was calling slow attack speed. They did get a bunch of armor taken off of them, and they need to be deployed to attack, and they attract sandworms when they're deployed. Good, 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 good. And they now take 4 seconds to deploy instead of 2. And they're a little more expensive. More command points, more upkeep, more cost. Okay, I'm glad there's some nerfs in there. But at 40 power base, ooh, these boys are going to still blow stuff up. You know, 3 of these guys lobbing 40 damage shells into your backfield are going to melt your ranged units lickety-split. Ooh, we'll see. We'll see. Artillery drones sounds quite strong to me still. Sardaukar got pretty good buffs, I think. 500 health is pretty good, pretty high health there. 17 power is the high end of middling power there. Attack speed slightly above average, not super fast, but faster than most. 5 armor is still pretty good armor for a melee unit. They execute units under 5% health, but that threshold increases by 2% per ally nearby. So you bring a Sardaukar and his 10 best friends. He's now executing stuff at 25% health. If you've got a huge, chunky army of conscripts, 20 conscripts, and 1 Sardaukar, he's executing stuff at 45% health. That's kind of silly. Sardaukar looks super good. I think they're going to be great. Hammers got a bit of a nerf to their health, but got a big buff to their power. A little bit of slightly slower attack speed. They can only attack ground units, but now they reduce the armor. They did jump from 20 to 40 guild favor, which is significant, but Corrino generally doesn't have a lot of problems with guild favor. So hammers look like they're still going to be quite good, but only ground attack. They can't defend themselves from air units. Okay, interesting. Kronos lost half its health and armor. New unit trait recovers health outside combat, and nearby flying enemy units receive 30% more damage. So enemy air units take more damage if they're trying to attack the Kronos, I guess. And the Kronos heals itself when it's flying around. I don't know that it needed that, but okay. Still sounds quite good. When Sissia as a hero, quite low health, quite average power, attack speed, low armor. So what's good about her? Well, +1 training slot if a conscript is being recruited. Okay, so she lets you just make some extra conscripts. Nearby conscripts gain extra armor if they're swordsmen or extra power if they're riflemen. And she receives less damage per allied unit nearby. Okay, so she's your conscript, your man-tide buffer. And new skill, unexpected reinforcements, heal instantly all nearby conscripts by half their health. But it costs the manpower that it would normally cost. I wonder how she works. Also, she comes with a tiger, when Sissia's Laza tiger, that has sort of low health but high attack speed. Of course, because, they needed a tiger. Captain Aramsham, high health, good high power, average speed, good armor. Sardaukar costs minus 20% manpower, and nearby Sardaukar can never, their threshold for executing can never be below 25%. And he gains killing flow every time a Sardaukar, +1 power every time a Sardaukar performs an execution. Cool. So he's like a half Sardaukar, half executioner. Finishing move, it raises, his special ability raises his threshold to execute to 50%, but consumes stacks of killing flow over time and lasts until the end of combat or until he runs out of stacks. Wow, that sounds quite strong. He sounds like a real ball breaker. Imperial Edict now has a constant cost of 20 influence. That's fine. All right, one more. We're almost there. Thank you guys for sticking around. House Ecaz. Base faction changes. Sanctuaries have no militia, and they can no longer be pillaged, as we were wont to do with our sanctuaries. Instead, they have new siege actions. So you can't just run in and murder the peasants anymore. Or you can tax collect them, where they just give you 300 solari. Or you can military parade, where they give your men experience points and influence. And both are faster than normal actions, but give the status taxed for 20 days. Okay, so they're just making it so you can't raid your own sanctuaries, because that felt weird, but still giving you some nice bennies for it. Counselor changes. Whitmore and Elisa are now removed. They're your heroes. Sonya Ecaz got a nice buff. Sanctuaries pay out 15 instead of 10 solari and reduces the cost of masterpieces by 40%. Mesa Ecaz, I think, got nerfed into the dumpster. She can still abandon villages, but now each masterpiece outside of Ecaz territory gives minus 15% siege duration on its village. I think that's worthless. It means that if you've got masterpieces outside of your territory, you could siege down that territory faster, but you've got to siege it down in the first place to build the masterpieces there and then maybe come back later and siege it super quick. She used to give you like 15% more authority, which was amazing, but now you've lost your authority generation and you just have this weird siege duration. Friendship ended with Mesa Ecaz. No longer. Pick someone else. Rivi Denari, new counselor. Military units at max level have no upkeep. Cool. Military units start with one more experience level. Cool. Pretty basic. We like it. Ebo Vip was the best name in the patch. Can use Landsrat immunity on a resolution to become ineligible. Love it. Gains standing upon building masterpieces. And immunity has been changed. It can now be used on yes-no resolutions. If Ecaz will not be affected, or Ecaz will not be affected if yes wins the vote. Okay. And Landsrat immunity, it costs a little more standing when used on a negative resolution, but if you use it on a positive resolution, it gives you standing or influence. Weird, but okay. I think the clear winners are Sonya and or Ebo, and then probably just Rivi here for your extra military units. Museum of Unbound Arts removes the limits like on masterpieces like it used to, but now every masterpiece on the map gives Ecaz 5 max authority, influence, and manpower. Cool. We were going to do that anyways, and now just a little bit better. A max authority and manpower probably don't matter too much. Max influence is cool. Max authority would have been nice if it was like the old days where we made ridiculous amounts of authority. We'll still be okay at it with sanctuaries, but without Mesa juicing it up, it's a little sad. Development changes. A national mythos that gives you your war banners now also makes champions give the units around them 10% less damage received. That's a cool buff. Logistical flourish. When a champion dies, get 50% recruitment speed for 10 days. Oh, I love it. It was always the Achilles heel of the Fremen, or not the Fremen, the Ecaz, was you would wipe their army and it just takes them so long to rebuild. They don't have the training slots. They really would like to make perfected units, and it's going to take them a month to do so. Well, now they get 50% less, or 50% faster recruitment speed for 10 days. That's enough to get out 2 or 3 waves of guys at least. Yeah, I like that a lot. Super, super nice way to shore up some weaknesses. Epic Quest deals 100% damage. I think that's about what it used to be, but it was maybe power before. Pretty much the same thing. Still good. Squires. Pretty decent health. Low power, average attack speed, high armor, +7 armor. And their traits give the target -2 armor. Okay, your squires are your tanks. They're going to wade in and take some damage, debuff the enemy, and not do much else than that. Musketeers, low attack speed, but a buffed up to 21 chunky power on them. No armor, and their trait is the target receives more damage from any source. Pretty good. Musketeers, I think, pretty solid. This sort of a slow attack speed, high damage range DPS. I think that's worthwhile. Fencers were garbage, and I think they somehow made them worse. They got slightly more health, very low armor, low power, but high attack speed, and -30% damage received from the target. Ugh. I think the only niche these guys had before was like early game micro killing militia. And now I think they're actually worse at that. It was nice that they were cheap upkeep, so you'd save a little Solari in the early game. Now they're 50% more expensive. Militia that you fight in the early game actually have 3 to 6 armor on them, so the low power, high attack speed doesn't work great against them. Oh, don't make fencers. I'm so sorry. What do you guys have against fencers? Why don't you make them okay? War banners, the mainstay of the Ecaz armies, got hit with a decent nerf here. Lost more than half their armor, about half their health. 300 health is pretty low. 3 armor is pretty low. Bounced up to 16 power, which is pretty good for AoE damage. And plus 20% damage inflicted by nearby non-mechanical units. Okay, that was very similar to what they used to have. So these guys are maybe even more DPS than they used to be, and they were already kind of a lot. But way squishier. They used to be chunky, tanky boys that were so hard to kill, and they would AoE you down. Now they're AoEing you down, but you could kill them if you want to. All right, probably a reasonable nerf. They're down to 3 command points instead of 4 too, so that's interesting. Yeah, sort of a DPS, AoE DPS support unit, not the mainstay they used to be. Curious. Knights, oh, I think they did our knights dirty, boys. 400 health down to 250. 250 is what I'm calling low health. That's like a sniper's level of health. Their trait used to be 20% less damage per nearby ally unit. Now it's 1 armor per nearby ally unit. I don't know what the cap on that is. Maybe it scales up to like 20, in which case it would probably be okay. But boy, your base stats of 250 health and 2 armor feels like you could be murdered pretty easily, especially by anybody that's doing some armor piercing. Oh, the health is too low. 25 power is awesome. It's an awesome amount of power. They lost a command point off of them, but I think the health is going to be... I think it's going to kill them. We'll see how it works in real time, but I feel like they did our knights pretty dirty here. Sirens, real low health, but super high power. They attack in a frontal cone and only damage mechanical units and ignore half of the enemy's armor. Wow, that sounds super strong with high power, armor ignoring, AoE damage. I'm guessing that's what they mean by the frontal cone. Huh. That sounds very cool. I want to use a siren to shoot something and see what happens. That sounds neat. Monument lost half its health, still kept a lot of armor, still kept its buff to allied units' damage, or its debuff to everything's attack. Okay. Whitmore Blood, 1200 health, incredibly high health. 24 power is very high. Average attack speed, 8 armor is quite high. New hero trait, can name a second champion. Cool, we always loved that. Whitmore himself is a champion. So does that give us 3 champions? Does that mean if we kill a guy, we get 300 hegemony for that? That sounds pretty cool if that's indeed how that works. Each champion gains 1% max health per trophy they hold. Okay, so if your champions are getting kills, they'll have some health, which is pretty needed for our crappy knight health. And new skill, Frightful Champion, +1 power, +1 armor per trophy, but consumes trophies over time. Okay, so when Whitmore gets kills, he stacks up trophies, and you can spend those trophies to give him a temporary buff of power and armor per trophy. And it wasn't too hard to get lots of trophies. I wonder, you could probably buff him up to be quite a monster like that. That sounds cool. Whitmore Blood sounds like a lot of fun to play with. Elisa Ecaz. Pretty low health for a hero, only 600. 20 power is decent. Above average attack speed, decent. Range, medium. Okay, so she's like a ranged attacker of pretty decent strength. Hero traits. Gain 20 manpower upon building a masterpiece. Okay, we like that. Extra manpower is always good, and we're going to be building lots of masterpieces. Killing her on Ecaz territory costs 50 Landsrad standing. Okay, so if people want to come fight you and they want to kill your hero, they're going to tank their Landsrad standing. We like that, I think. Nearby allied units deal 10% damage per masterpiece in neighboring regions. Is there a cap on that is my question, because that sounds broken to me. It is not unusual for a region and neighboring regions to have, I don't know, 10 or more masterpieces in it. Does that mean all of your units are dealing 100% more damage when you're defending your territory? That sounds broken as fuck. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there's a cap on it. Maybe it's capped at 3 or 5 or something, and then it would be pretty ho-hum. But this sounds awesome. And her skill is she feigns death when she reaches 0 hit points and reappears immediately at her rally point for 1 day. I wondered if you need to pop that manually or if that happens automatically. But that sounds pretty cool. Both of those sound like awesome heroes. And then they fixed a couple bugs. Ecaz no longer get the quest to break truces. And boom, that's our patch notes. All right, what are our enduring takeaways? I feel like our house Atreides is sort of above average at everything. It'll remain to be. I feel like they're the best hedge guy now. They're the only one that kept their super authority. The Fremen lost their Stilgar. The Ecaz lost their Mesa. But the Fremen kept their 2 authority from Duncan on to Paul here. I feel like, or not the Fremen, the Atreides. I feel like the Atreides got some potential, along with massive hit point boosts and generally above average units. I think they seem pretty cool. House Harkonnen also got just sort of cool stuff. Not really any nerfs, just some gradual buffs. It'll sort of remain to be seen how their army composition shakes out. I feel like maybe the Cerberus was a pretty bad nerf for them. You could consistently run a bunch of Cerberus and a bunch of executioners, and when your Cerberus died, your executioners turned into crazy mass murderers and would just kill everything. But now your Cerberuses are no longer splitting. You're no longer getting that extra bonus death on death stuff. Smugglers, I think, got some nerfs really. Some buffs. I'm a little ho-hum on the Smugglers. They've got a lot of cool stuff, and Smugglers in general are pretty cool. I think Banerjee is awesome. Having the underworld doctors, the back alley doctors everywhere is a super cool idea. I'm interested to see what kind of crazy shenanigans that might get up to. And Drisk being a super powered sniper sounds sort of cancerous, but maybe fun. Fremen, I'm concerned about. I feel like the Fremen got wild military buffs. The massive stealth, the incredible power of what I suspect are going to be skirmisher and Fedaykin death balls. Oh man, they're going to just stealth on top of you and murder your army before you even know you're under attack. It's going to be bad. But with the loss of the authority on Stilgar, they're going to struggle to do that fast expansion that they used to love to do. I feel like they're going to they could kill everybody in the world, but they can't actually get to the win con of, hegemony that they used to. Maybe it's a win con of elimination now. Who knows? Corrino, strangely, I feel like got largely buffs across the board. It'll remain to be seen how their big conscript balls will work out. Their heroes seem super cool. The Sardaukar seem better than ever. Hammers are great. Artillery drones are still great. I feel like Corrino has a lot going for them. Ecaz, I would be feeling really good about Ecaz if they didn't do their knights so dirty. How do you give a knight 200 and what? Where was our knight? Let's be sad again. 250 health. How do you give a knight the one of the most heavily armored, toughest guys in the game, one of the highest powers in the whole game from a unit. You give him 250 health. Oh, that's doing him dirty. Oh, okay. Well, maybe this armor trait of tons and tons of armor on them will keep him alive, but remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. I think the war banners probably got nerfed pretty bad here. I don't know. We'll see what an Ecaz army looks like these days. It's hard to tell in a vacuum, right? So much stuff changed. The way, the sum of the parts could be very different from what we're seeing here, but all kinds of crazy stuff. It's a wild world out there. We haven't even talked about House Vernius of Ix. Oh, they're totally different. They don't even have manpower to spend on stuff, really. I mean, they do, but it's crap. They're making all kinds of drones and spending Solari and getting knowledge. Crazy stuff. We'll talk about them later. This is a long enough video. Thanks you guys for sticking around. We got an exciting time ahead of us in Dune, and looking forward to seeing some of you on the field of battle there, and we'll sort it out with the Chris knives. Thanks as always. I'm Davok, and I will see you around. Take care of yourselves.